Hey there everybody, this is Lee with Creative2xmom, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the books we read in the month of August. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Lee and this is Creative2xmom. This channel is all about homeschooling, parenthood, and thriving in the day-to-day. Today's video is going to be all about the books that we read in the month of August. Every month I share a video like this one, just sharing with you guys what I read personally, as well as the read-alouds that we did with the kids. So as I shared in last month's video, I knew that August was going to be a challenge to read, just since we're getting back into the routine of school, and we're getting back into a few other extracurricular activities happening. I just knew that August was going to be busy, and I probably wasn't going to get as much reading done as I typically would. And I was right. I sat down with my list today to pull some books off the shelf that I could share with you, and I realized I only read 2 books personally in the month of August, and I've already returned them both to the library. So I'm going to insert videos for you today. It was just crazy, busy, and I feel like with getting back into that routine, I didn't have the brain space to do as much reading as I wanted to. But I did get 2 really good books read. The first one is called The Brethren by Beverly Lewis. Now the last couple of months I've been sharing with you the series that I've been reading called Annie's People by Beverly Lewis. I shared with you that I do like her work, but she's not my favorite Amish fiction writer. However, this particular series really grabbed my attention. I think I read the first one in either April or May, and then this was the 3rd of the trilogy. So The Brethren is sort of the wrapping up of Annie's story. And if you'll remember back to a few books before, she met a young man named Ben Martin, and there was sort of this hint that Ben didn't even really know who he was. Well, sort of in this book it unravels his past, it unravels who he is, and there is a connection between him and Annie in just sort of locked away memories that he hasn't been able to access until the 3rd book. I'm trying to give you some information without telling you what actually happened, because it is the wrapping up of the trilogy. This series in particular, I sort of struggled with the first book until I got to the very, very end of it. I didn't find it super engaging, but maybe the last 1/3 of the first book and then the 2nd and 3rd books really were probably my favorite of Beverly Lewis's work. So if you're looking for something light, or if you just like her as an author and you just want something to sit down and relax, this was sort of my relaxing read, because it kept me really engaged and going the whole time, and I didn't feel like anxious. You know, Amish fiction sort of puts you at ease. So this, I would say, out of all of her work, this trilogy would probably be the one that I would recommend right now, because it was really good. And the 3rd one does wrap it to a satisfying ending. Sometimes you get to that 3rd book and you're like, I just read 3 books for this, but the 3rd one was really good. The second book that I read in August was called Mere Motherhood by Cindy Rollins. Now this book is by Cindy Rollins, and you may know her from her previous blog that she wrote. I know her from researching morning baskets in the homeschool world. I would say the first 2/3 of this book, she shares her story. She shares how she met her husband, sort of what her Christian journey was like in her early years, how she became a mother and started rolling out having all these kids, how she got into homeschooling. And I felt like her story rode that balance of being honest and not trying to wrap everything up and make it rosy. They want to share you the gritty, and then they tell you, oh, but everything's okay, and there's none of this in between. She did a very good job of laying it out from, these were my faults, this is how I worked to overcome them, and then this is the fruit that came out of it. It was really like being asked to sit down and just have a conversation with her. It was interesting to see how personable she could be in her writing, and how honest she could be in her writing, and still come away from it encouraged. The last 1/3 of the book goes a little bit more into her thoughts on Charlotte Mason, her thoughts on narration, her thoughts on reading aloud, getting out in nature, goes a little bit more into the homeschooling philosophy that she followed. I think the biggest thing that I got out of Cindy Rollins' book was her value for narration. And having that Charlotte Mason leaning in our homeschool, I still struggled with narration and why it was important. I, on the one hand, kind of understood it, and on the other hand, really didn't have a value for it until I read this book and read what she shared about how it developed her kids' writing. My kids have always struggled with writing. And so now I'm thinking I really need to delve more into this narration business, which is very ironic because I'm also reading the Charlotte Mason Companion, and the section that I'm in right now is all about narration. So I know I'm going to be taking a lot of notes in September. Wait a minute, I almost forgot. There was one other book that I read in August. I knew this list seemed entirely too short. I read Chains. I can't remember the name of the author, but I'm gonna put in a picture anyway. I think the series is called Seeds of America, and this has been one of those books that I've wanted to hand off to my daughter, but I also wanted to read first, and it just kept getting pushed further and further down the list. I have to tell you, it was amazing. We are following the story of two little girls who were slaves back in the East, and then they were sold after their owner died. She promised them their freedom, and a family member took control and sold them. And it's the story of this little girl and everything that she has to endure. It's set in the time of the American Revolution, and she starts to sort of work as a spy because she ends up in the home of a loyalist, and she hears things and she doesn't know, should I tell the revolutionists? Should I tell that? She really is stuck because she doesn't know which side to believe or where to go. And ultimately she ends up becoming a spy because she believes that's what's going to gain her her freedom. She's separated from her little sister that she feels she needs to take care of, and so she's working really hard not to just get her freedom but to get her sister back. I think there's 3 in the series. This is just the first one, but I have to say, after having read it myself, I would recommend it for probably 7th or 8th grade. I don't know if I would go any younger than that because of some of the material in the book, but it was very engaging, a really good look, an alternative look at American Revolution and what was happening in that time period. I'm going to be trying to work the time in to finish and work my way through this one after reading the first. So our read aloud for the month of August was The Jungle Book. Now I have to confess, this is a classic that I have never read. So I was excited to see that it was included in the recommended literature for our Story of the World this year. We picked it up at the library, and I have to say it did not disappoint. And if you are used to the Disney movie version of The Jungle Book, this is completely different. So much richer, has so much more depth. And in the volume that we read, we also had short stories by Rudyard Kipling. So we read several of his short stories, including Rikki Tikki Tavi, which is very, very cute, and my kids just loved that one. So with such a light month of August, I'm going to try a lot harder to get some reading done in September. In fact, I have started 2 books that are on my Kindle. The first one is Mama Bear Apologetics, and the second one is Sally Clarkson's new book, Awakening Wonder. I've already started both of these, and I'm finding them super challenging. The Mama Bear Apologetics is a lot about discipling your kids, helping them read through scripture, understand their faith, be able to defend their faith, and know what they believe. Whereas Awakening Wonder from Sally Clarkson, it's classic Clarkson writing. She's talking about how to get your kids engaged, how to hold their heart, and how to really bring the home into your homeschool. I have one more book on my September reading list, and that is The Brave Learner by Julie Bogart. This is one of those books that I struggle to get through. I try to read it once a year. It's probably been about a year and a half. I struggle because Julie and I think so completely differently. I am such a type A, whereas she is a very gentle learner, but I feel like I need that balance from what she has to offer. So this is I believe the last book on my summer reading list, and I'm going to try to work through this one in September. As far as read alouds, we've started 2 for the month of September. We have Born in the Year of Courage. I've never read this book before, and apparently it is a true story. And I think there's several versions of this man's story. I was looking through Give Your Child the World by Jamie Martin, and she mentioned several versions for different age ranges. This is the one we're working on. And we are talking about the Twin Towers as September 11th is coming up. It's such a hard conversation to have, and I usually try to take a week or so to do a mini unit in our history on the Twin Towers. We've never read this book before. I'm curious to see how in-depth it goes. I may censor it a little bit, and on the other hand, I think it will be just enough information for the kids I have. So those are the books we read in the month of August. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what is on your reading list. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll see you next time. Bye guys.